Thrilled now to go to where I'm from, go to the Midwest, and talk to Fred Hoiberg, former NBA coach of the Chicago Bulls, now in charge of that Nebraska program. Coach, congratulations on the job, and thanks for making time for us.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Bill. Thanks for having me on.
I have a lot of family from Nebraska. They're very excited about the task in front of you and what they think is a lot of reasons that you're going to be successful. As you look at your program, not a lot of starters coming back. What are the things you're looking to do to get this basketball team, to get this program where you want it to be?
Yeah, it's this team does lose a lot from last year with Glenn Watson and James Palmer and Isaac Copeland, and we'll see what happens with Isaiah Roby. He's in the early entry pool for trying to get into the draft. And we're going to support him however we can. I know how excited he is to be invited to the NBA Combine coming up here in a couple weeks. So we lose a lot, and it's going to be up to our new guys to come in here and fill those shoes. We're excited about some of the players that we have signed these last few weeks. This last weekend, we got a very good point guard in Cam Mack, who played at Salt Lake Community College. Very good, getting into the paint, very fast with the ball. Excellent vision in playmaker. Gervais Green, who was signed by Tim Miles in the previous staff, is a guy that we feel very fortunate has kept his commitment. He's a combo guard that, again, does a lot with the ball and plays with great speed. Hanif Cheatham is another player who's a fifth-year transfer. Got him after starting at Marquette. Spent the last year at Florida Gulf Coast. And he gives us great experience. Another guy that can play with the ball in his hands and can make a shot and get into the paint. And then Matej Kappas as well, a player that shot as well as anybody last year. He was 7th in the nation in three-point shooting at over 45%. And our newest player that we just signed today, who will actually sit out this season in Delano Banton. He's a player that's got great versatility and certainly fits how we want to play. So we're excited about where things are these first couple weeks on the job.
Coach, you're a well-respected guy around the NBA. You're a well-respected guy at the college basketball level. You certainly had options, and we've seen a lot of guys who have coached or have a pedigree at the NBA level like you do as a player and a coach have a lot of success in just finding jobs and building successful programs at the collegiate level. So for you, a guy that has options, why is Nebraska the place you want to be for you, for your family, for your basketball career?
Well, it starts with my family, and I've got a lot of connections to this university, and it starts with my grandparents. My dad's father, my paternal grandfather, was a professor here in the history department for over 30 years. My other grandfather coached here for 9 years. He was here from 55 to 64, and has some great wins, some of the best wins in the program's history, with beating Kansas, a team led by Wilt Chamberlain, and then the following week knocking off number 1 Kansas State. With Bob Boozer. And, my parents both went here. My dad got his PhD University of Nebraska back in 1972. I was actually born in Lincoln before my dad moved the family to Ames when I was actually 2 years old. But we spent a lot of time in Nebraska with holidays, spending time with our grandparents. I've got aunts and uncles in the area, cousins. My brother lives in Nebraska. So, it really always has been a second home for me.
I love it. Yeah, I've got roots there as well. Coach, since we've got you and it's NBA season, want to hit you with a few NBA questions, given your background and your pedigree as a player and a coach. And one of the big storylines that we've seen the last week is the officiating, some complaints from the Rockets. As a guy that coached at that level, as a guy that still follows the NBA, what have you made of the officiating in the ways in which in post-game press conferences and maybe just through the media, players and coaches try to maybe sometimes shape and bend how officials are going to react in upcoming games?
Well, I think it is a little discouraging. It takes away from, I think, where the game is right now, which is as good as it's ever been, with the talent that in the skill level of today's player, to have so much talked about in the scrutiny on these officials. It's just, it's unfortunate. I'll say it that way, that, that's what's dominating the press. You see all these talk shows that are on right now, and, they're not talking about, Giannis's skill set. They're not talking about, Harden and his ability to score and his one-on-one ability and, everything that the Warriors do. The focus so much is on the officials, and I think that's very unfortunate. Hopefully moving forward, it looks like it was, a little bit better last night. Those guys have a hard job. They're going out there and officiating the best players in the world. And, I think for the most part, they do a good job.
You coach Jimmy Butler. You know what he's about, his positives, his negatives. When you look at what he's trying to do in Philly, what's your expectation for Jimmy with that team in this series, and just whether or not the Sixers can get the best of Toronto?
He was phenomenal in game two and really became the go-to guy. And, one thing about Jimmy, there's not a better competitor at any level, all across the world in basketball than what Jimmy brings you. He's always going to give you a great defensive effort. And, he's one of the rare players in this league that does it in an elite level on both ends of the floor. It's the trades that Philadelphia made to put them in a position to win a championship, not only with Jimmy, but with Tobias Harris, bringing him in, the way that team is built, with obviously Embiid, being as dominant a force as there is on the inside, Ben Simmons with his unique skill set, and then you got Redick out there as your sniper. So, they've got so many things that they can do with that team. And again, they can go to a lot of different players. Embiid, if he's got to go into the block, they put the ball in Jimmy's hands a lot, obviously, in that fourth quarter. The other night against Toronto. So, good for them to get the split. Should be a great series.
Coach, you brought up Giannis and his ridiculous skill set. It feels like even now he may be the MVP. The sky is the limit. Mike Budenholzer has him the green light for shooting threes. Giannis, I think he hit 2 of 4 in last night's game. How do you, if you're any team going up against him, the Celtics or otherwise, how do you scheme against Giannis? What do you try to do to slow down his remarkable talent on the offensive end?
Well, he's as difficult a game prep as there is in that league. And, the biggest thing that we always tried to do, not that it works very well, but, we tried to get the elbows covered and try to get the boxes. And you see Boston, when they're getting back in transition, which you have to do against Giannis in that Milwaukee team, is you have to show length, you have to show numbers, and you have to try to get him to kick the ball out. The other thing you have to make him do is shoot. And, if he's going to make 50% of his threes, you're probably not going to beat him. And, Budenholzer's done an unbelievable job. And, the system that he runs with a 5-out spread offense has been so good for that team. You look at their 3-point rate, where it is this year, as opposed to where it's been in the past. And they've done a great job building that team of shooters around the most unique player in the game.
Coach, we've talked a lot here on the show about Damian Lillard and maybe to the casual fan how underappreciated he is for what at least I think is a superstar level guy. He plays on the West Coast, so a lot of folks on the East Coast are sleeping when he's playing games in the regular season. And Portland's been good but hasn't advanced very deep, and sometimes at all in the postseason the last few years. When your Bulls teams were playing against that Portland team and you looked at Lillard on tape, can you give us a sense of what you saw just in terms of how you regard him relative to the other guys in the NBA?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think he's as unappreciated a player as there is in the game, and he's just such a lethal player. Can go for 50 any night. And then his counterpart in the backcourt, C.J. McCollum, he's another guy that can give you 50. He gave us 50 in 3 quarters a couple years ago in Portland, and he's playing at such an elite level right now, and that's going to be a great series with Denver. He just got so much skill out there on the floor. You look at what Jokic is doing right now. He a triple-double threat. He just seems to be getting better by the minute every time he's on the floor. Murray has really elevated his game this year as well, and then they've got great role players around those guys. But as far as Lillard, he's absolutely a superstar and should be in the conversation of best point guard in the league.
Fred Hoiberg, really appreciate the time. A lot of excited family members that you're in Nebraska. I would tell you to go easy on the Hawkeyes, but you're not going to, and you're not supposed to. So I'll just say best of luck, and thanks so much for making time for us.
Yeah, Bill, thank you. Take care.